Right then, Darius, would you like to introduce yourself and Peter Jennings Disciples?
Sure. I'm Darius McCasky, sometimes AKA Reverend D Money, from Peter Jennings Disciples. We are a dark electronic, pseudo-grunge, I don't know what we do, uh, kind of band from Rockford, Illinois, USA.
And the name. What?
Yeah, so that's a fun one. So it goes back a long ways. I had a friend many years ago, super talented musician, very much in the vein of like Dave Grohl. Like he could drum, he could sing, he could play guitar, piano, like super talented dude. Also super wacky and creative and imaginative. And so we had this gag that Peter Jennings, the Canadian American news anchor from ABC News back in the day, was actually using the news outlet as a front for an international street gang. Um, and so when I started this project, I originally had a different name for it and started getting going. Had some songs ready to release. I'm looking on Bandcamp, and there's like 15 other bands with the same name already. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not going to work. So then I kind of went back to the drawing board and I was, trying to think of something, unique and uh, that just like that old bit just kind of like popped into my head. And so then I kind of started working the idea and morphed it into this like quasi cult sort of idea. The name of the band and the imagery of the band is very silly. The music is very not. And that dichotomy, that sort of duality, I think, kind of fits with with me as a person and what I'm trying to do. So it is a goofy name, but that's what we've got, so we're sticking with it.
Exactly that. Exactly. And like, I've also noticed you use some really unusual kind of imagery on your releases.
Yeah, so the main EP releases, that is all art from super talented tattoo artist from Madison, Wisconsin, actually. Um, his his work is all up and down my wife's arms and whatnot. Really, really cool dude named Sean Gualtney. So if you're ever in Madison, Wisconsin, you're looking for a tattoo, you should go see Sean over at Bad Apple, because he's really good. But yeah, I've had him do both of the EP covers, and then the singles. Those I just tend to do like some photo manipulation kind of stuff, just for contrast or whatever. But yeah, Sean is really good. It was really I was really worried that he actually wasn't going to be able to do the second EP cover. He was in a really bad motorcycle accident and like broke 4 or 5 of his fingers. His arm was broken, multiple like, and he was concerned too. Like, if I don't recuperate from this, like that's my career's over if I don't have fingers, right?
Exactly.
So but he really pulled through it. He even did, because he was trying to raise some money to pay off the medical bills while he was still in casts. Actually put out a bunch of takes on like 80s horror movie covers. So like we've got one of his Nightmare on Elm Streets hanging up on the wall behind us, and yeah, he's bounced back. He's back to work, and it's really cool. So probably gonna see some more of Sean's work coming up sometime soon.
It's good. It's very unusual.
hmm Yeah, I just, again, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, what can I do that's, that's different and fun and, being from a smaller place, I really like the idea of all of us kind of there's a lot of creativity in this area, and because we're not Chicago and whatever, we don't necessarily get as much attention as other places. And so the idea that like, hey, listen, we're all doing adjacent stuff. Like, let's help each other out and, you know, kind of build a scene, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I do like the artwork. It kind of goes together with what your name and everything. It does go together quite well. It's all sort of a bit out there and it's a bit different, and that kind of builds up that anticipation. Then you hear your music and it's like, oh, that doesn't sound anything like what I expected this to sound like.
Right.
Really doesn't. It's quite a surprise, to be fair.
Yeah. No, that is fair. And I think that's, you know, again, that's one of those things where I just, you know, I like the idea of doing something different. I, you know, just being the same as the next, as the next, as the next, like that doesn't really have any appeal
No,
to me.
no,
Yeah.
I can understand that. And what inspires you, like your lyrics and
So I've been writing, and this is going to sound terrible. I've been writing poetry since I was about 12 or 13. It's one of those things, you know, you're in school and you get the assignment to write something, and you know, most kids just kind of groan and, you know, they slap together a limerick or something. And that for some reason it just really, you know, really clicked with me. And so I just kept doing it. You know, I kept writing poetry, kept reading poetry. Um, and to me, there is a difference between song lyrics and poetry, but they're very closely related. And so a lot of times, you know, lyrically, um, you know, if I get to that point in the songwriting process and for whatever reason I don't already have an idea for the lyrics, well, I just go to the notebooks and find a line or two, or sometimes it's even just a title that like, oh, I can take this in, you know, in a different direction in the song, or then other times it's literally exactly the same because I tend to think fairly rhythmically. Um, so a lot of times I'll be able to take, you know, a poem whole cloth and just kind of move it over and, oh, I might need to tweak a word here for to get the phrasing right or something. But um, yeah, I actually just put out my second book of poetry this year. My first collection came out like 10 years ago or 12 years ago or something, but my second book
oh,
of poetry.
that's
Yeah.
cool.
Um, yeah, and you know, that's again, it's another one of those things where it's like, you know, let's do something different. Yeah, I know nobody reads poetry anymore, right? But who cares? I wrote it, I'm gonna put it out there.
Don't blame you. It's
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's what you enjoy that comes first, and then if people love it, hate it, that's up to them. But ultimate, it's what's good for you, what you feel that you want to do, and what makes
Mm,
you happy.
right. And I have to give people that chance, right?
Yeah,
Like if I don't put it out there, nobody else can ever discover it. For better or worse, right? Like nobody can decide whether they like this or hate this unless it's out there in the universe and it exists. So as long as the words and the rhythms and the melodies keep coming, I'm going to keep putting them out there.
yeah. I don't blame you at all. I don't blame you at all. The the last EP you put out, that's fantastic. It
No,
really
thank
is.
you.
Bad news.
Yeah.
Um, I was listening again today, and Wild Girl, absolutely fantastic. You've got I've got to read that because I can't remember the how to pronounce it. Lapel
L'appel du vide.
the Vide. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's almost like a march, but it's a kind of haunting march.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's
Really good.
literally the call of the void. That that pull
Ah,
towards the self-destructive, that impulse you get when you're driving down the freeway and there's that little voice in the back of your head that says, turn the wheel, like just crank it, flip the car, like
yeah,
that, that kind of idea. that, you know, I don't know about anybody else, but every once in a while that like weird self-destructive impulse just kind of kicks in, and that's really the genesis for that track for sure.
I think we all have it occasionally, unfortunately, but whether it's
Yeah.
good or bad, I don't know, but we all seem to have it. And then you've got echo chamber, which is extremely tribal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the mallets on that one, that was one of those things where it's like, okay, I knew when the track was kind of building, you know, that piece wasn't in there originally. I just knew something was missing. And so it's like, okay, well, let's go to the sample library. What's here? And, you know, when when I came across that, I was like, that's it right there. Like that's the piece that, like, you know, the drumming with the mallets instead of the sticks, so you get this kind
Yeah.
of darker, heavier, more tribal kind of sound for sure. Yeah.
But each track on that EP is so different. There's not two that have a similarity. They are all so different. Is that what you're always aiming for? Just to
I mean,
not be
that's
repetitive?
yeah, and that's part of the reason why I struggle sometimes when people ask what, you know, what genre is the band in. I'm like, well, it kind of depends on the song, really.
Yeah.
You know, some of it is very much dark wave and, you know, synth heavy and whatever. But then, yeah, you get a track like Wild Girl, which to me is very much my homage to a band like KMFDM. You know, very industrial rock
Gonna say
kind of thing.
industrial, yeah.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, to me, it's that's part of the joy of this for me is the exploration, and you know, there's all kinds of different stuff that I listen to and love, and so I think that when I'm writing my own stuff, yeah, it really is like, okay, well, which direction does this song, you know, want to take me in? Is it, you know, I've got a track that I'm working on for the next EP that is the very, I don't know, arguably like pop punk. Like, and I don't know how that happened because, you know, it's certainly if somebody sat down and said, you know, okay, what is the blueprint for the next song? It probably my answer probably would not have been pop punk. Um, but that's just kind of how it's, you know, how
Yeah.
it's coming out.
Yeah.
So,
But
um,
that's great to hear different styles from a single band, basically. It's nice to hear that because it makes a refreshing EP, album, whatever to listen to because you don't really know what to expect from the next track.
I do like to keep people guessing. Yeah.
And it's great. It really is great the way you've done that.
Oh, well, thanks.
What
Thanks.
band what bands have or what music has inspired you over the years?
So I'd be a liar if I didn't say that there's a lot of uh, the early Nine Inch Nails on heavy rotation in this house. So it's kind of wild. The first time I heard Nin, I did not like them in the slightest. The first track I ever heard from Nine Inch Nails was Closer. And I was like, oh, this, what the fuck is this? Um,
Yeah.
and it just, you know, at the time I was listening to a ton of like Megadeth and Metallica and, you know, lots of
Right.
metal, lots of grunge rock. And so that was just such a wild departure from what I was used to at the time. It just didn't resonate with me. But then back in high school, I had a buddy that made a mixtape of like Nirvana B-sides and rarities, stuff like that. And there was just enough space at the end of the A side. You know, he didn't want to have like 4 minutes of nothing at the end of the tape. So he snuck on uh, Wish by Nine Inch Nails. And that was the right song. That was the thing that, you know, there was that aggression, the heavy guitars, like it was enough that it, you know, it resonated enough with what I was already familiar with that like, yep, that's when the hooks got in. And then, you know, the next day I show up at school and I'm like, dude, what is, that's obviously not Nirvana. What is this? And he was like, oh, it's, this. And hands me the CD, and yeah, then I went down the downward spiral, and got a copy of Pretty Hate Machine, and then finally got the Downward Spiral and all of the 50 million remix things that came out. And so then from there it was like, oh, okay, well, had another friend that's like, oh, you like Nine Inch Nails? Here, check out this album, and hands me Angst from KMFDM. And I'm like, okay, yes, this is friggin' amazing. And so then it's the whole back catalog there, and it just kind
Wow.
of blossomed from that one song.
So
Yeah.
it almost changed everything you were listening to in a
It
way.
it really did.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, like I had been a, pretty big metalhead, and then Nirvana was just this breath of fresh air. It was adjacent, there was some aggression, some anger there. The guitars maybe not quite as crunchy, not all the songs are, 50 million beats a minute,
Yeah.
but there was a natural progression there. But yeah, once the Nin bug hit, then yeah, it really started going a different direction for me. And so yeah, um,
Wow.
for sure. Now that being said, um, as far as other influences, my favorite band in the whole world is Rush. Um, so you know, kind of different than
Yeah.
that, although there's some similarities there. There's some common threads. My When I was a kid, my favorite band in the world was Huey Lewis and the News. Um, I think if I could sing like Huey, I would be super happy. I don't have those kind of pipes, unfortunately, but yeah, there's something about that that little bit of fun, kind of upbeat, like every once in a while. Yeah, I definitely veer towards the darker stuff. But again, that dichotomy, like you have to have a little bit of lightness and all of that to be able to appreciate the other thing.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's an incredible way of changing your way of, well, hearing music, really. It's just from one song and it's built up over that.
Yeah.
That's good. But I mean, I'm not a great fan of Nine Inch Nails, but I do like your music.
Hmm.
So
Well, thanks. I'll take it. I'll
yeah,
take it.
yeah, why not? Why not? So
Yeah. I
do
mean, I was gonna say, I think that's, that, and that probably is why when you look at an EP, like one track does not necessarily sound like the next. Well, that week I might have been jamming out to, Moving Pictures a ton, and those were the sounds that kind of locked in my brain. So this track came out a little proggier, whereas this other thing, oh well, I was, just blasting KMFDM all week, and so you end up with Wild Girl. Yeah.
no, it's a good sounding EP. When's the next one planned?
Well, right now I'm working on some finishing up some remixes for Wild Girl, actually. Probably gonna put that out late summer, early fall. Just got some finishing touches. And then already working on the next EP. That's probably gonna be next year. The sad fact of the world that we live in is that being a full-time musician is very difficult. And if it were, 10, 15 years ago, I might consider quitting the day job and trying to do this
Yeah,
full time. But I've got a kid and a mortgage, so you
exactly.
know,
It becomes
yeah,
impossible. I think I don't know. I haven't met a musician yet that hasn't got a day job.
yeah.
I
I
just haven't met one.
I don't even know how you do it anymore. The economics have completely changed, and I don't know how it's viable to just be a full-time musician unless you are, every moment like a session musician for other bands and you're constantly promoting and pushing and on tour all the time, I don't know how you do it unless it's literally from 7 a.m. to midnight every day. And even then, I don't know if you're making it.
No, no, I still don't know if there'd be the income from it. It's not
Yeah,
to get by with a family.
right, right.
I really don't
And
know. I don't think that's possible now, unless
yeah,
you're getting the royalties like people like, I don't know, like the Rolling Stones or something. I can't see how you can do it. I really don't.
I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing is if you're already established, yeah, you can get by,
Yeah,
your Stones, your Reznors, the folks that have already made it can continue to make it. But I think, it's very rare, uh, the less than 1 in a million now.
I think so.
Your Billie Eilishes are definitely kind of a fluke, where
Yeah,
you're self-producing, and then all of a sudden you get discovered and signed to a deal and all that, and that it's even less possible now than it used to be, for sure.
without a doubt. I mean, the amount of people I speak to, and they all say, if it wasn't for the day job, you just can't get by. There's
Yeah,
not enough income from it.
no,
And if it isn't for the merch on the tours,
you can't even
there's
do
nothing.
that.
No,
Yeah,
even that's not enough.
yeah, yeah. I
And
think you're lucky if you break even on a tour anymore.
yeah, it's really sad though, isn't it?
It is, and I don't know how to fix it. I mean, I wish I did. I wish I knew what the answer was, but uh, I just, I don't think, I don't think we know it. We're in uncharted territory, with so many things, whether it's, uh, the streaming platforms and their economic model, which I think we can all agree is suboptimal for
Yeah,
smaller artists. Um, but even touring with the pandemic, like a ton of venues have closed, because they
yeah,
they just weren't able to keep afloat during the pandemic. um, so you've got fewer places to play, they're further apart, petrol's super expensive. Like, how do you make that work
yeah.
as a full-time gig? i I have no idea.
And I'm assuming they're booking the bigger names before the
Oh,
smaller artists.
oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
from a business standpoint, I don't blame them, right? Like,
No,
you
they
want.
need to pack out the venue. So
Right.
that's what they're
Exactly.
doing.
Yep.
So it leaves the smaller artists kind of on their own,
Hmm.
which
Yeah.
is tough.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to my buddy Joe Whitaker from the Funeral March, who I also play with.
Ah,
And yeah, we were kind of having this discussion where, it's like, what is the viable path forward? And really, it's not enough anymore just to be, a good musician. You've also got to be a PR agent and a recording engineer and a mixing engine. Like, you basically you have to have that DIY mentality, because
yeah.
otherwise it's virtually impossible to make a go of it. Yeah,
Yeah, you have to do everything yourself. Otherwise, you can't afford to have the outlay to somebody else.
for all of
Otherwise,
the you.
that's everything you were going to earn has just gone to the one the one person, and it's just
Right.
that doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, you used to be able to, just show up and be the musician, right? I'm here to sing, I'm here to play, drums or bass or synth or whatever it is. Like, that was enough years ago, and now it's like, no, 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 you can't do that. Somebody has to be able to take on these other roles,
Yeah,
because otherwise, yeah, you're going to be even more in the hole than you already were.
yeah. And I've spoken to so many bands, and you get one person from the band is the manager, the promoter, social media.
Hmm.
They're doing everything
Yeah.
because the band cannot make well, not even make a living, but can't make anything come in money wise if someone isn't taking that all on basically free.
Right.
Yeah, just
Right.
donating their time.
Yep.
It's not nice. It's not good.
Yeah.
But thank
And
goodness,
yet we continue to do it anyway.
I think it's the love and the passion for music, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't at this point, if you're an independent artist and you don't love what you do, if you don't love music, I have to question your sanity,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's got to be the love and the passion. If it's not that, then there's something wrong with you.
Right. Like, what the hell are you doing all this
Yeah,
for?
yeah.
Why are you putting
What
yourself through this?
what are you getting out of it? This.
Yeah.
So, do you
Yeah.
do live performances, Darius?
So I do play live with the Funeral March. I have played one show with PJD, just kind of figuring out how to do a solo show and not have it seem like karaoke.
Yeah,
It's been interesting, and thankfully, I do play bass, so I've been able to kind of rearrange some of the songs so that I can at least bring that element in, and then um, spoiler alert, I use backing tracks. We all use backing tracks, kids,
yeah.
just so you know. Um, but yeah, so I've been able to do that once. I am looking to do to do more. Right now, it's the main focus is on getting new material recorded, though.
Yeah.
Um, so to be continued, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine that's quite difficult being by yourself on a stage and, like you said, trying to not make it sound like karaoke.
Right.
Because you got to put so much of yourself out there to get that right.
Yeah.
Um, but that must be difficult, but interesting at the same time. But how did it go then the first time? All right.
Not too bad, I don't think. I I did flub uh one of my lyrics on uh so Wish, again, super important song for me. It was the thing that got me into industrial. So I put a cover of that in the set. Um and yeah, I did sort of flub one of the lines, but I remembered the fist fuck part. So I think I got the message across.
Brilliant. that's
Um,
that's the main thing.
I mean, right? That's the Grammy winning lyric right there.
But I can't imagine how much it takes out of you being solo out there.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging. So I suffer a little bit from stage fright too. So then being for sure the focal point of the attention
Yeah.
kind of amplifies that piece a little bit. But yeah, I don't think I did too bad. Definitely some rough edges that need to get smoothed over before I hit it again. But yeah, it was that show in particular was interesting because PJD and Funeral March were on the same bill. So
Ah,
I opened the show solo and then came back and played bass with the Funeral March. Um, so that was quite a night.
but you're saying about stage fright, you're not alone there. This is going back a year or no, nearly 2 years, I guess now. Um, you would have heard of Front 242.
Hmm.
I spoke to Jean-Luc
Okay.
from the band, and he was saying how after all these years, they still get very nervous, very anxious, get all the butterflies and etc. before they go on stage, and they treat every gig as their first. And he said we thrive on that, feeling that nerves and everything before we go on. You'd think they were so seasoned to it, it would be nothing.
Right.
They go out there so kind of powerful looking and sounding, you wouldn't believe that they're actually feeling so scared of going on stage.
Yeah.
But clearly it
I
does
mean,
happen to everybody.
and I think to a certain extent, I think that's a good thing, right? Because you don't want it to be like punching a clock, right? Like, oh, I show up, clock in, okay, I play a little bit. All right, cool, we're done. Like, I don't want to see that show. Nobody wants to see that show.
Complacency.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
taking the audience for granted and just, I'll just get it overdone and over and done with, and that's it.
Right. And so I think, I think if you do have some nerves, it shows that you still care, right? Like
Yes,
you're still interested in putting on the best show you possibly can
exactly
and
that.
and being nervous about what can I put on,
Yeah,
that amazing show that these people deserve because they've ponied up some good money to come see me.
yeah.
So yeah, I do struggle with it. I think I'm getting more comfortable as I'm getting, more reps. But yeah, I think it's always going to be there to a certain extent. And I think I will be a little suspicious of myself when I step up there and I'm like totally fine.
Yeah.
This is whatever. Because I think at that point, yeah, maybe it means I shouldn't be up there.
So is it easier when you're with the funeral march? Is it easier, or is it?
It's it's certainly easier being, one of three versus one of one. Um,
Yeah.
especially being the bassist, I can kind of slide into that bassist role and just sort of slink to the back of the stage and do my thing, and it's
But
that's a little bit easier for sure, for sure.
but when you're out there and you're doing the vocals and everything, that's a little bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't hide.
You can't. There's nowhere to go, is there? Nowhere
Nope.
to go. Ooh, yeah. So
Yeah,
what's
definitely.
kind of the future looking forward to?
Um, I really love the EP format. And so I think, that's like I said, I'm working on the next one already. I think I'm gonna stick with that, and kind of follow that same, EP, some singles. I do love the one thing that I do love from kind of the industrial scene is like the penchant for remixes and like that being
Mm.
a just as big a release sometimes as the main record. um so yeah, that is definitely a thing I'm going to continue to do too, is find find folks that are interested and willing to kind of take what I've done and slice and dice it and come up with something uh, different and interesting. When I started putting together the remix release for Not Enough Bridge, um, that was it was such fun because all three of the folks that did remixes for that turned in very, very different things, very divergent from the
Yeah.
original, but very divergent from each other. And man, that was so fun to listen to those as they rolled in. As like, oh, I would have never taken this song in that direction, but that's really cool. Um, yeah, I love that part of it too, for sure. And the camaraderie aspect too. I know all of these folks and um, just tremendous respect for all of them as fellow musicians. And yeah, just being able to like continue those relationships and see the interesting ideas that they come up with. Man, I love it.
Who has remixed you so far?
um so the three folks that remixed Not Enough Bridge, Bellhead, a duo out of Chicago, two basses and drum machine. I friggin' love them. Karen and Ivan are such dolls. They've been super supportive of me through this whole, process. Then Kewillian from New Zealand,
Oh,
and Circle Six from here in the States. Those two are folks that I actually met online. We're all three of us are uh, Patreons of a gal named Ixie. She is super, super sharp with music theory. And so part of my process, of course, I want to learn as much as I can about these things. She kind of hooked me with some of her theory breakdowns of some Nine Inch Nails stuff, and so there's this whole community that she's kind of built around that from her Patreons. And yeah, when I was working on the EP, I knew that that was a song that I wanted to to have some remixes done. So I just kind of put the call out, like, "Hey, anybody interested?" And I'll shoot you over some stems or whatever. And
Yeah.
those two jumped on it immediately. And yeah, what they turned in, I was like, "Oh my God, this is great!" Like these are exactly the kind of thing I was looking for. So, um, and then I've also got so far already in the can a couple of remixes for Wild Girl. Like I said, are going to come out later this year. Um, those another one from the aforementioned Patreon, and then another Chicago act called Die Mad did one. That one was kind of funny. So uh, Dave Schock, who manages Bellhead, Karen's husband, we were just chatting, and at first I was just going to put out like essentially another EP of remixes, but I didn't have a good balance between those two songs. And so he's like, "Okay, hey, well, let's go talk." Like, literally dragged me over to Matt from Die Mad and was like, "Hey, Matt, you're gonna do a remix for him, okay?" And he's like, "All right, cool." And I've heard it. It's done, and holy crap! Like, thank you, Dave, for volunteering
Oh,
Matt for that, because it's fantastic. So yeah, and I would definitely, continuing down that path, as I meet people and we connect, and if there's an interest there, like, yeah, I'll shoot you some stems.
yeah, because there are quite a few good bands out there that do some really good remixes for people. Really good.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean,
Um,
there is no shortage of talent
yeah,
in the world, for sure. It's just a matter of making those connections and uh, being either brave enough or stupid enough to ask.
yeah. Spank the Nun do good ones.
Yeah,
Really
yeah,
good
for sure.
ones. Yeah, he's very good at it. And there's a band from Brooklyn that I've quite friends with. They had their whole album, and they set themselves a challenge. And I think it was in 6 months to get the whole album remixed by different people.
Oh,
And
right
they
on.
put out the same album but remixed.
Completely remixed. Oh,
Absolutely
nice.
fantastic. And it was just like, wow, this is weird. It's the same album, but
But
it's
it's
so
not.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every song was remixed by a different band or artist or whatever. So the sounds were just you recognized it, but it was like, what's happening? It kind of knocks your senses all over the place because you know the band, you know what the album sounds like, and then every song sounded familiar but very
But
different.
different.
And it was
Yeah.
just wow, I love it.
Yeah. No, for sure. That is definitely one of those things. I love that same kind of idea. One of the other things I'd love to do too, and I just haven't gotten the courage to ask someone to do it yet, is, I don't know if you remember back in the Wax Tracks days, they did some of those like verses, like TKK versus KMFDM, where
Oh,
it's like,
yeah,
one band does the other band's song, and they put it out
yeah.
as, like a split single or whatever. I definitely want to do something like that at some point. I always thought those were so cool.
That'd be cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be cool. And you've got some great tracks to do that with as well.
for
So
sure.
it
And
would fit
hopefully
in perfect.
some more good ones on the way. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure they will. What about could you do something with the funeral march? As in,
We've kicked around that idea.
oh,
We just haven't found the right kind of thing for it yet.
yeah,
Because the funeral march is, very much more a goth rock, a post punk kind of band.
yeah,
And we just haven't found the thing that like makes sense. Not that I necessarily, as we've discussed, have a style or a sound. But yeah, we just haven't found the right thing to do it with. Although that is a fantastic, we really should, because then if we do ever play a show together, we could kind of do the little switcheroo, you know, and
Yeah,
have
and I'm
that be
also
like
thinking that
this.
might be a kind of a foot in the door to encourage other bands to come and do that versus with you.
Yeah, true.
It's like an
And
introduction. Look, I'm willing to do it, so
right.
come on.
Come on. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, your music, like I said, it surprised me because I wasn't sure by the name of what
Yeah, what
to expect.
what am I gonna
And
get here?
yeah, and when I sat down and started listening, I thought, this is nothing like the name. It really isn't. This is so completely different. I mean, the name completely fools you. It really does. But the music, honest Darius, it is so good. It really is. And I didn't realize, for my guilt, I didn't know that you were just one person doing it, because it sounds so. There's a lot of power there for one person.
Well, thanks, man.
So it's
Appreciate that.
honestly, it's so good, and then when you say where you come from and things like that, it's like, wow, where the hell did this come from?
Came from the post-industrial hellscape of Rockford, Illinois.
Yeah, and damn glad it did, because it's so good. It really is. Yeah, well done on that. I mean, hopefully,
Well, thank you, sir.
we see you going around a lot more and being able to release a lot more, because it's great music, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there would really appreciate it. It's just getting them to hear it, isn't it?
I mean, that is the ultimate. I mean, it was always difficult to get, new music heard. It's super difficult now. But, the other thing, I may not be, the best and most talented, whatever, but I am damn persistent. So I'm gonna keep going. And until I get banned from Apple Music and Spotify and Bandcamp, I'm gonna keep doing it.
Darius, so many bands tell me the same thing. I'm not the best. We're not the best. We can't do this. We're not very good guitarists. We're not very good this. And it's like, do you not listen to yourselves? You're so damn good.
Well, I mean, to be fair, as a bassist, I, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, well, as a bassist, no, I'm not as good as Geddy Lee. As a vocalist, like, oh, no, I'm not Huey Lewis. But you know what? I don't need to be. It's okay. It's okay. I've got my own thing.
But you mentioned, I think you mentioned Dave Grohl earlier. And did you see the interview where somebody told him, you're known as one of the best drummers in the world? And his answer was, don't say that. I'm not that good. And he was explaining how, I think it was Smells Like Teen Spirit.
Oh, where he ripped off the disco beat?
Yeah. I just reversed it.
Yeah. Yep.
Brilliant,
Yeah, I
when
mean,
you listen to it, you think, oh my God, yeah, he's doing that.
until he points it out, you're like, oh yeah, this is, yeah, it's a great beat. And then but the problem is then he tells you what he did, and he pulls the curtain back a little bit, and then you're like, oh yeah, okay, he did.
Yeah, he did. But then you still can't get out of your head that he is one of the best drummers. It's still in your head that he is.
And it does take, I don't want to say talent, because talent's a very loaded term, but it does take skill and knowledge and experience to know what to steal, right?
Yeah.
Like that,
and how to manipulate what you've taken. Yeah, which he reversed it. I mean,
yeah,
who would have? He's had to listen to that and think, actually, that will sound really good if I
just did it this way.
Get around, And it's like, how the hell did he think that?
Right, because I wouldn't have thought of that.
No,
never in a million years.
People would.
Yeah,
but it's obviously he's got some skill there with his music that he's obviously listened to it, and he can then maybe in his head listen to it different ways. I don't know, but So yeah,
Yeah. No,
but
I mean, and again, that's another one of those folks that like it's persistence too, right?
yeah,
Like he could have after, when Nirvana ended, he could have very easily been like, okay, well, that's it.
yeah,
I'm gonna go get a job down at the warehouse now, but no, he's like, nope, I'm not doing that because, you know, that's just not how he's wired, right?
yeah,
And so, okay, I've got to get through this thing, and we're going to start something else, and I'm going to keep going.
yeah,
Um, and there's, countless examples of that where like it really is just that determination not to give up that is often the difference maker.
exactly, exactly. I mean, he made Foo Fighters massive. He really
I
did.
mean, arguably Foo Fighters is a bigger band than Nirvana ever
Nirvana,
was,
yeah, yeah,
you know.
exactly. So good luck to him, and he loves his fans as well, and that I think that
Hmm.
helps. When you love your fans, I think that, and you appreciate your fans, even though you're big, you still have that appreciation for them. You don't take them for granted, and I think that helps so much keep a band not just relevant but popular.
Hmm.
And I think that's
Oh,
a great thing.
yeah, for sure. And I mean, like going back to what you said about Front 242, right? Like
Yeah,
those butterflies, those nerves coming from wanting to go out there and do well by your fans like that. Yeah, that's
yeah.
huge.
You're still, after all these years. I don't know how many years they've been going now, but I know it's been a lot.
A while, yeah.
Yeah, and they're still giving it all. So those fans know they pay to see Front 242. They get the best Front 242 that is available at this present time. They get the
Hmm.
best.
Yep.
And that, I think, goes a long way. Once you've got the appreciation of the fans, fans appreciate you, and it's reciprocated. But
Right.
it's
It's
the best way to have it.
that virtuous cycle of,
Yeah,
everybody elevating everybody. Yeah,
yeah. And I think that works incredibly well that way. I think mutual respect, and
exactly.
that's what keeps a band going. I mean, apart from a few that seem to milk it for everything they
There are always exceptions to every rule. Yes.
yeah, yeah. And they seem to be able to do whatever they want and still be able to milk it.
Yeah.
um, Darius, is there anything else you'd like to mention that we can get out there to fans, old and new?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the latest EP Bad News, it's available. I still have a few copies on cassette if you're old like me and you like tapes. Um, I
Well,
don't know how I got back into tape collecting, but somehow I have, and you should join me on this journey. I think I did a pretty good job of, putting together a nice package. Of course, if that is not your thing, the digital is always available everywhere. If you're so inclined, my second book of poetry, Scorn and Contempt, poems for the fragile and broken. Um, Available wherever fine books are sold. Um, Although I'm also selling it on the band's Bandcamp page, and you get a digital copy of the Not Enough Bridge single along with it. So if you want to kind of double up and get some words and some music, it's cool. Um, and stay tuned. I got more coming. I'm not going to give up until they tell me I can't do it anymore.
and that won't, hopefully will never happen. And I can't see that it'll happen either.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
definitely. Personally, I like vinyl. I've just started back into vinyl again. I
You
when I
know, the thing with vinyl is it's so expensive to produce.
yeah, that
Yeah. I
is a big
mean,
problem with vinyl now, isn't it? You'd think it would have got cheaper, but it hasn't.
right.
It's got
Yeah.
far more expensive.
I mean, the same thing is true to a certain extent with tapes, just that there's only so much tape left in the world. Nobody's really making
No.
new magnetic tape. So there's kind of finite stocks there. But But yeah, the thing I love about vinyl is the format. Like you get the big, beautiful art and the booklet,
Yeah,
but, but it takes up so much space.
it does. But do you know, I put on. I mean, I love punk music, and I've got a few punk vinyl and recent ones, but and you put them on, and you hear that vinyl sound. You know, the little bits of crackling and
Hmm.
bit rough and ready, and you think that's how punk should be listened to, not digital where it's all perfect.
Super
I like
clean
those
and yeah.
imperfections. They just make it, and it
Oh,
does sound better like that.
for sure, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's one of the things, I like the Misfits. I love horror movies, and so like they're just kind of a natural fit. And it's one of the charms of the earlier like Danzig era records is they're kind of lo-fi, right? And they sound punk rock.
Yeah,
Um, Whereas I do like some of the newer stuff, but in some ways it's almost too clean, you
yeah.
know? It's like, yeah, it's punk, but like where's the crust? Where's the rough edges?
Exactly. And what gets me is the people, oh, but it's got this crackling sound and it's got this, it's got that. And you think, have you been to a gig? Yes. Which do you prefer, the CD or the gig? Oh, the gig, it's so much better. What about all the noise that's there and the imperfections? Oh yeah. And that's
Oh,
where it
right.
sounds the best. It's
Yeah, yeah,
live. It sounds the best because it's raw, it's real.
for
And
sure.
that's then it starts to sink in a little bit that, oh yeah, I get it now.
Right, right.
That's how
Yeah.
it should be heard. And that's so much better. It's just raw as it should be. I mean, you can't listen to a band like the Sex Pistols on a CD. It just
Yeah.
sounds too clean. And it's like, what the hell have you done to
Right. Yeah,
that?
something's not quite right here. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to hear that noise, the mistakes, the occasional where it's gone wrong on the thing. That's how it should be, old school.
Yeah. Well, and you can do some really cool stuff with vinyl too. I'm looking. I do have a few records. I'm looking at one from a band called Shadows and Mirrors, also from the Rockford area. The record is called Levels, and the vinyl is cut to look like a rusty saw blade.
Oh wow, very
Yeah,
nice.
it's
That's
really
something
cool.
unusual as well, isn't it? I mean,
Right. And how do you can't do that with a CD, I
no,
don't think.
no, I don't think you can because I think they really do go wrong.
Yeah. But on the vinyl, it's like, okay, the grooves go out this far, and then you've got this extra bit of material that's shaped or whatever. I've seen like people cut vinyls like in a triangle.
Yeah, yeah, because
Like
as long as you've got the round part in the middle,
you're good.
the
Yeah.
rest of it can be any shape as long as it fits.
Yeah, right, on the platter. Yeah.
Yeah, that diameter is still there. It will fit and it will play.
Yep.
So you've got a lot of creativity that can be given across on a vinyl,
Hmm.
which you cannot get on any other format.
Yeah. You're certainly not gonna see like a diamond shaped 8-track ever.
No,
Like you can't do it.
no, you just can't do it because they are a specific size. The CD is a specific size. There's nothing you can do with them.
Yeah.
Whereas vinyl, it was almost a perfect idea for creativity. So you could mix music and art and creativity so
Hmm.
much more. I don't know, holistic. I guess it's completely all there. Then you've got the covers, like you said, all the album art. You've got all the pullouts. You can have a what they call it, open sleeve kind of thing. So you've
Oh,
got more
hmm.
art inside, like a
Yep.
book. There's so much you can do with vinyl.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's the costs. That's the trouble, and yeah, they are quite fragile, I guess, but then you learned how to handle.
Well, not like CDs weren't. I mean,
Well, yeah,
please, you chuck a CD in a corner, okay, now it's scratched and you're screwed.
yeah.
That.
You know, I don't know if you remember, but I remember them first being shown on the television, and they were pretending to scratch them. They were putting jam on them and saying this will just wipe off and it will still play, no problem at all. No, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
They are
No. Then
terrible.
yeah, you get it home and you accidentally, scratch it, pulling it out of the package, and
Yeah,
oh
because
look
the
now.
package doesn't let them out properly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's already,
Oh, cracked.
yeah,
No.
either cracks because they were unbreakable, unscratchable.
Yeah.
None of that's
BS.
true. Yeah,
BS.
exactly. Yeah, it was just such a lie. All of it was just lies to pull us in. And I think that's why they didn't have the lifespan as such as vinyl. That's probably why vinyl is coming back, because
Mhm.
people have worked out that it was a lie.
Yeah.
It
Well,
wasn't true.
and there's something to the tactile, like having a physical artifact. I think that really appeals to people. And maybe it's a little bit of backlash to the whole streaming idea where you don't own any music and it's ephemeral, and I think people like the tangible aspect.
Yeah.
There's something to just the ritual of it, right? I pull the record out of the sleeve, I put it on, I drop the needle, I put the cans on, or I turn up the speakers, as opposed to, oh, I grab my phone and I press play and then it's just kind of disposable.
Was you going to use the same word? It's disposable music now.
Hmm.
And a lot of bands have pointed out that nobody seems to listen digitally to an album.
Yeah.
It's all on just random play, and they might get a song from an album, but they won't get a whole album.
Right.
And I think that can't be good.
Yeah.
And with a
I don't think so.
record, a vinyl, it's difficult to go and skip, isn't it?
Skip. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, why bother? I'll just listen to the whole album, then turn it
Right.
up and listen to the other side. CDs you can skip.
Hmm.
Digital you can skip. Vinyl, you listen to the album. And I found that myself getting back into vinyl, that I'm starting to listen, apart from when I'm reviewing where you listen to a whole album, but when I'm actually just for pleasure, I'm actually listening to whole albums again.
Hmm.
And I think, I really appreciate that. Oh, that song I haven't heard before. Brilliant. Love it.
Yeah.
Because you miss out so much good music that you've been skipping.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. Like you get those songs that maybe weren't the hits, or maybe got buried on the B side but are actually like your favorite
Yeah.
songs, on the record. Um and you don't get that from the digital experience, right? You
No.
you get, like you said, you get a track maybe, you know. I mean, that is another part of the reason why the EP format appeals to me, is that it seems like it's sort of that middle ground.
A bite size, isn't it? It's a bite
Yeah,
size album.
yeah, exactly. Um, but also too, from an economic standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, because it's not the big, huge investment of an LP, but it's not, just a series of singles. It's, I feel like the EP is like kind of the happy medium.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
the great thing is with your EP as well, bad news is that it is 4 very different tracks. Is it 4 or 5? Sorry. I'm
five,
5.
five.
Very different, but each one is so different. And I think it makes you listen, because you're not bored, because it's almost like listening to 5 different bands, but it's not. It's just this one band. It's
It's
fantastic.
just
I
the
love it.
the one dude with one guest guitarist on one track and a guest bagpiper on another track.
Which is unusual.
Yeah. I did have somebody, I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was something along the lines of bagpipe on a dark wave track. That does sound like bad news. And I was like, oh, but listen to it because it's good. It for me it really makes that song like that. I had to have that in that song, um, for very personal reasons. I knew very on in the production of that track that I needed a bagpiper, and I started with, a synth, something out of Contact, one of those libraries, and I was like, no, I need to hire somebody to actually play the pipes on this song.
Yeah.
The fake stuff ain't cutting it.
No, no. See, I don't like bagpipes, but I don't mind them in yours. And I heard another one recently, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it was. They had bagpipes in, and I remember actually writing something about, I never thought I could like bagpipes, but this actually goes really well.
I mean, I think unless you are of a certain ethnic persuasion, they are tough to approach, especially by themselves.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's why they work in my track, is it's within the context of the song. I think that if I had just, if the song was just vocals and pipes, yeah, I don't think that would have worked.
No, no. They are hard to appreciate, aren't they? They are very difficult.
It is, yeah. No, I'm not gonna lie. Like I get why people might not like the pipes. They are certainly an acquired taste. Right, with an
Well,
army of pipers, and
yeah,
and the full drum corps, and that has its place. Certainly, like, it definitely riles the spirit when you hear that, and strolling into like the Highland Games kind of thing or whatever. Like,
yeah.
absolutely, I get it. This is part of my heritage, but I'm probably not going to go out of my way to just listen to a bagpipe record.
No, no. And I can imagine that back in the day when the armies were being led by the bagpipes, that the enemies probably ran away just to get away from the sound.
The sound. Right, you didn't even have to be a good fighter. You just
No,
needed the pipes in front of you.
where's the enemy gone? Oh, they're running over the hill. Look.
Good job, boys.
Same time tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's an unusual instrument, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is an instrument. So it does, like it did on your record. It does work. So
I
you've
think
got to use it the right way.
yes, use it judiciously.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just
And
not too much, just enough.
and make sure it's mixed well.
Yes, yeah. Very well. Well, Darius, this has been an absolute pleasure, a laugh, but it's also been informative. And good luck with all your future records, what you're coming out with. Hope we can do this again, maybe just before your next EP or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you having me. It's been a blast.
No problem at all. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you. Well done on Bad News. It really is a good sounding EP. It really is. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome. See you again in the future.